Hey everyone, I am so excited to share Lenore Skenazy with you. I meant the conversation to be much shorter than it turned out to be because we went off on so many great tangents and there's so much of a sort of similar sensibility about empowering kids to develop confidence and resilience and flexibility and the ability to solve problems from the inside out. Hi Lenore,
Hey, Susan.
long time no see.
Actually, that's very true. I was calculating, it's like 5 years or something. Ridiculous.
And just for all of you, Lenore and
Hmm.
I met when I had been hired to write I think it was called Parent Coach column for AOL with,
No, don't. AOL,
oh my
is that
gosh,
in cuneiform? Did we read something
with our
about that in
friend
the
Susan and Avery.
pyramids?
I know.
Right.
And then you came on because this whole thing had happened. Will you just
Yeah.
share a minute of that and then I'll read your bio?
Oh, sure. This whole thing being I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone in New York City, where I live, wrote a newspaper column about it, and ended up on every possible television show defending myself.
Yeah. Okay. So, Lenore Skenazy is the president of Let Grow, which is a nonprofit that promotes childhood independence, woohoo,
Yay.
free play and responsibility. I didn't know this about you. You are a Yale and Columbia graduate. You and then sparked the free range kids movement after this event, this
This, yeah, earthquake.
scandalous thing. And you've really become a leading voice for helping kids develop more resilience by doing more on their own. And now Let Grow champions childhood and helping kids build confidence and self-reliance, a lot about independent play and real life experience that encourages that. And I know you've worked closely with Jonathan Haidt, who's been in the stratosphere,
Or whatever's beyond the stratosphere.
kind of sounding the alarm between this
Yeah.
connection between overprotection and anxiety in kids. And I do a lot of stuff in my world around anxiety. So I want to start with that and then start really talking about how parents can take a page out of the Let Grow page book as well as schools. So what have you learned about anxiety and with your collaboration with Jonathan and this
Mhm.
whole thing that we're seeing in epic proportions
Yeah.
growing kids?
Yeah. So John Haidt and another guy named Daniel Shuckman were talking together 8 years ago about anxiety on campus. They saw kids needing more mental health services than ever before, more anxious, more mistaking whenever they felt uncomfortable with literally being unsafe. They felt unsafe when they were faced with a new idea or anything difficult that they hadn't tried before. And John and Dan were both saying that trying to help them at this point is a late stage intervention. They're already 18, 19, 20. Wouldn't it make more sense to try to build kids who are resilient and open-minded and resourceful and anti-fragile from the get-go? And John had somehow I'd met John, I wish I remembered, but I'd met John before and he'd read Free Range Kids and he and his wife were raising their kids free range. And John said, let's start a nonprofit with Lenore. And when they came to me, I said, okay, but let's also bring in Peter Gray, who's a professor at Boston College of psychology, who has spent his life studying the importance of kids just playing on their own without adults watching and structuring and instructing and high-fiving and trophy giving, just kids playing on their own, different ages all mixed together. So the four of us got together and we started Let Grow, and our literal, we keep changing our slogan, but currently our slogan is making it easy, normal, and legal to give kids back some independence and free play.
Wow. A year or so ago, I stumbled on this Netflix show called, what's it called? I wrote it down.
Which one? Oh, old enough.
Old Enough.
Yes.
And it was just, oh my gosh, you see this 2.5-year-old leaving the apartment building, getting in the elevator, crossing the street, going down the
Yeah.
road, taking the money, buying sushi, getting back. Now they've prepared the child, they've taught him or her the route. And I thought so much of you
Thank you.
when I watched that because I don't think that's what you're proposing exactly, but I think it's
No, I say three.
you're in the same spirit. Like we are
Yeah.
literally denying our children. It's not just that we're protecting them too much. We're denying them something so essential to becoming a balanced, confident human being. So do you want to say something about that and what you've seen?
Sure. Old Enough is this charming Japanese TV show. It's been running for 30 something years.
Oh, I
And
didn't.
yeah, no, it's been going on forever. And it does show kids. I think they finally skewed younger just to be a little more dramatic. But basically, it's kids 3, 4, 5, or 4, 5, running errands on their own. In Japan, it's called My First Errand. And what's amazing about that show is not just that the kids go and they're always getting something to do with sushi. I'm going to get the rice. Oh, I'm getting the fish. I'm getting the wasabi, whatever. I'm getting dad's apron so he can make sushi. But what's really astounding is that you watch, and sometimes the kids are psyched and sometimes they're crying at the beginning. It's like, this is a little scary, it's a little daunting. But what they know is that the adults in their lives believe that they can handle this. And so off they go. And I know that if this were filmed in another country, once the crying begins, cut, I can't do it. They're traumatizing the kid. It's too much. Obviously, they're not ready. And the difference is only the adults, because the kids always end up rising to the occasion once they're given trust and a task. And these are two things that we've been told by our culture are too much for us to give our kids. And in fact, we just keep getting the message from our very fear-based and worst case scenario culture that trusting kids to do almost anything on their own will end up possibly, potentially, probably in a disaster, and it'll be all your fault. And we're supposed to be thinking that way. I call it worst first thinking. Come up with the worst case scenario first, and then proceed as if it's likely to happen. And once you've done that, you go, well, I can't let my kid do that. I would regret it for the rest of my life. And so we've really been beaten into not believing in our kids. And that means that we don't let them do much on their own. And wildly and sadly, the truth is that when kids do something on their own, that is the anxiety buster. And it's not just the anxiety buster for them, it's for us too.
Yeah.
So when we founded Let Grow, a bunch of us, we were all thought leaders, quote unquote, but thoughts weren't getting my audiences anywhere. People would go, oh, yes, I remembered my childhood. Oh, it was so fun. Oh, we went in the woods, or we went and got ice cream, or my parents would die if they knew where I was. All these happy thoughts, but I could never let my own kids do it. And it's, if that was your best time, why, and you want to give your kids the best possible childhood, why is that the one thing you're taking out? But we have been drained of our belief in our kids and our neighbors and our own parenting. And so we decided, forget the thought leadership with people going, yeah, that's a good idea. We really wanted to put it into action, because it's only, you're a shrink, you know this, it's only action that breaks the cycle. Because if you're in your mind, things get scary and then you don't do it. But if you're pushed, gently pushed to let go, and you see your kid go get the sushi rice, or walk to the bus stop, or go on a play date without you, that rewires you. And so we, at Let Grow, we came up with just 2 programs for schools, because that's where the children are. Get a lot of kids doing something at the same time, get a lot of parents doing something at the same time, and you've changed the cultural norms. We've got 2 free programs that we feel will make the change that we want to see, and that will drastically bring down the anxiety levels in both generations. As John keeps saying now, it's the anxious generation. Which one is it? We keep thinking it's,
Yeah, right.
But it's also the parents. And
Yeah.
the Surgeon General found that. He did a big study that found that kids today were more anxious than ever. And then he found that parents today were more anxious than ever. And there's a reason. And it's the same reason, which is, if you don't see how much your kid can do, they don't know what they can do, and you don't know what they can do. So you're worried about them. They can't handle anything. And they don't have the knowledge, the reality of saying, hey, that wasn't so hard.
Sort of 2 parallel tracks in my mind. One is exactly what you're saying, that we don't trust our kids, that any kind of pushback from them activates this, oh, but I want to be a good mother, and my role is to protect them from harm and from distress. But the other track is this flooding that we're given. If I'm looking for a show to watch on Netflix or Prime,
Oh,
somebody's gotten killed, slashed, it's like,
right.
we're so flooded with horrific imagery and news and of course that's what sells. And I think there's that too. But you've talked about the safety, the reality statistically. Can you speak to the thing where we're so primed to be afraid for our children based on what we're seeing in our feed?
I will. And then I have to tell you the 2 school programs that I think change
For sure.
our DNA. But yes, the media loves nothing more than murder and mayhem, because that is what we watch. And of course, in a competitive media environment, more and more of it. And your brain works like Google. You think, is my kid safe at the bus stop? And up pops Eitan Pates, taken from a bus stop 40 years ago, or JC Dugard, taken from a bus stop, or any number of Law and Order episodes where a kid disappears from a bus stop. And because those stories are so easy for us to remember. I'm sure you know this. There's the availability heuristic, incredibly arcane phrase for easy to remember. And therefore, we think it's common. The easier it is for you to remember a story, and of course, Law and Order with its great music and beautiful actors and scary storylines is a lot easier to remember than the millions upon millions of students who have waited bored and cold at the bus stop for the last 40 years who haven't been taken. And so if you think that it's, if you ask if my kid's safe at the bus stop, your brain brings up these images. They're all scary because we've been immersed in all these scary television shows and internet everything. You think that it's very likely that your kid is going to be kidnapped, even though the statistic that was crunched for me by a guy named Warwick Cairns in England was that if you wanted your kid to be taken by a stranger in a Law and Order type kidnapping, the stranger takes them away, how long would you have to keep them outside for this to be statistically likely to happen? And you might know the answer. Do you? Oh,
No.
good. Oh, do you want to guess?
Yeah. No. Do I want to guess?
How
Uh,
long would they have to be outside for it to be? It's like how many lottery tickets would you have to buy to be statistically
I
likely?
know
You're going to
gonna
grossly underestimate it, so
embarrass
think
myself.
big. Huh?
2 years.
You got to think longer than that, like
Uh,
way longer
10
than that.
years?
No, goodness, longer than that.
100 years?
750,000 years. Okay,
Wait, say it again.
750,000 years for them to be statistically likely to be kidnapped by a stranger, driven someplace, held overnight, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, the point is it's rare, and yet it's not rare in our brains. And
That's a
some
great
people
way to
think,
say it. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. So here's the deal. If your brains are constantly giving you this bad feed of scary stories and pre-regret, oh, I would regret myself, I couldn't live with myself. The only thing that counters a false notion or a phobia or a fear is exposure, is reality. And so we recommend highly, and we have 1,000 schools doing it so far, the Let Grow experience. I know, I'm glad it's 1,000, but I want it to be 750,000.
Yeah.
So the Let Grow experience is just a homework assignment that teachers give kids, or that the school counselor comes in and gives all the kids. Doesn't matter who gives it. It's just a free homework assignment that says go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And we have lists. I was just looking at one of our lists today. It's like you can ride your bike, you can make dinner, you can go to the store, you can climb a tree, you can go to a friend's house, blah, 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 blah. And a million other things that we don't list because it all depends on you and your interests and your age and your neighborhood and what your parents think makes sense. And it's you and your kid are deciding this. So it's not like we're saying every child must take the subway. It's not that. And the thing that's so amazing, and I'd say fast acting, except it sounds like a drug, but is that when you let your kid go to the store, say, I mean, I've watched this locally, even with some people also in Queens. I live in Queens, New York. They were very scared. They had a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they finally, thanks to Let Grow, let their kids walk to the store, which was maybe 3 blocks away. They have to cross some streets, so you wait for other people to cross. You look both ways, you make eye contact with the cars. You can teach kids to cross the street safely. And then they went to the store and they got cranberry juice. And then they came back home. And toasting with that cranberry juice was like a wedding. Like, this is so great. Today is such an important day. And what was so great is that I ended up talking to the family again like 6 months later because wanted to do a follow-up. And I found out a couple of things. One is that after that, they were letting the kids walk home from school, and the 12-year-old would sometimes stop at the park and play ball for a little while before he came back. And the dad had gone back he was from New Mexico. And when he'd grown up with his twin brother, they had been riding bareback horses in the gullies in the desert at 10. And here he was not even letting his 12-year-old boy walk to or from school. And so he said he went to talk to his nephew, who's a grown-up, who was a pastor there. And he felt compelled to tell him this story. Guess what? Now I'm letting my kids do this. And the pastor put it so beautifully. He said, you always had faith in God, and now you have faith in your kids. And that has struck me because the opposite of faith is anxiety, right? If you believe in something, even if you believe that my kid could screw up, but it's still going to be okay, that gives you a lot of peace of mind. That, and the opposite is thinking you must be with the kid or be watching the kid all the time for them to be okay. That becomes, it's all the tracking is presented as peace of mind. You'll have peace of mind, you'll be able to see where they are any second. No, real peace of mind comes from peace. And peace is believing that this is going to be okay, or even if it's not okay, it's still okay.
And that's fantastic. And you can only get there if you have witnessed your child being competent or stumbling and figuring out. There is no shortcut. There's no way to develop that true internal, not just thinking it, but feeling it in your bones, confidence that if my child does hit a challenge, not that we've downloaded all the precautions and given them every kind of pepper spray and every kind of sonic device, but that we fostered in them a level of assertiveness and problem solving and creativity that if the light is broken, what if the stoplight's broken and you've practiced it with them, but now the light is never turning? What do they do? I remember hearing about this college kid. This kid had been so sheltered that she went to college and she called her parents from the dorm on the East Coast and they were on the West Coast to say there's a fire in the dorm. Didn't call the fire
Wow.
department, called
Wow.
her in run. Once we give our kids at appropriate amounts, and I love the Let Grow program because they support you in this, then we can watch them incrementally develop that self-mastery and confidence and creativity and resilience and all those good things so that the faith is natural. You come by
Mm-hmm.
it internally because you've already seen them function in the world without you and do well. And then, oh my gosh, what it does for their sense of self.
And in fact, there was a pilot study that now just got a big grant to be a bigger study, where a psychology professor at Long Island University used independence as therapy for kids with a diagnosis of anxiety. And so he met the first week with each individual kid's parents, and then it was just a month-long protocol. So the second week he met with the kid and the parents to say, kid, and rather than saying, I hear you're too scared to go upstairs in your own house, or I hear you're afraid to walk to school. Didn't say that. He said, what are you ready to do that you haven't done yet, that you feel would be really great? And then the kids had to do something. I don't know if it was every day or every other day, but it was another 20 days. And all the kids in this study, which is all, it's just 4, but all of them went from feeling worried most of the time to feeling worried a little bit of the time. And I'm not at all surprised. I was delighted that it worked out so well, but it's like there's a drive in kids to be competent. That's what the 3-year-old going to get the sushi. They want to be part of the world. They want to be helpful. They want to be successful. And when we deny kids that by doing everything with them or for them, or I would say even always tracking them, they don't see that they're okay. It's like denying them food. Of course they're drooping. They haven't seen who they are. They haven't had that big drive for competence, independence, mastery fed at all. And the other Let Grow program that we recommend is that schools stay open for all ages together, free play. There's an adult there, but they're not organizing the games. They're like a lifeguard. And that's how kids learn how to make something happen and get buy-in. And you can't be a total jerk and still have anybody want to play with you. And so the rough edges get a little smoothed out. And if you don't have friends in your fellow third graders, you make friends with the kindergartner by giving them, a piggyback ride. And then school is not a dreary, horrible place. It's a place where everyone's saying hi. The little kids are also excited to see you. So it's so simple. It's not free because there does have to be somebody there in charge, but
Yeah.
parents pay for all sorts of classes after school. And if we called this something, we call it the Let Grow Play Club, but if we
Yeah.
called it the Let Grow Executive Function, Independence, Assertiveness Training, Future Political Career, I mean, if you call it anything about what it's teaching kids, social, emotional, advanced placement class, then hopefully parents would sign up for it because we've seen kids desperately want it. They love
Yeah.
it so much. And there's no phones. Where else are
No
they going to
phones
get
allowed.
a ton of time
Amazing.
face to face with kids, making things happen, making friends, making jokes, if not just at school where there's already a giant number of kids, right? You don't send them home and they get on their phones or they go to the park, there's no one there. Keep the school open for mixed age, free play, and you've
Right.
solved a lot of problems.
Can you pause for 1 second?
Yeah. So anyways, it's that simple. If
Wow.
schools would just offer that as one after school option, and you can get a grant, or parents can pay for it, or there could be a sliding scale, or you can hire an 18-year-old instead of
Yeah.
a licensed teacher, because really what you want is somebody who doesn't get involved. You want a teenager scrolling through their Instagram feed so while the kids are playing around them. That would be ideal.
And how can they lobby their school to make that happen?
We always recommend not being so demanding that nobody wants to talk to you, but I'd say find some other parents who think that these are good ideas. They're both recommended in The Anxious Generation, John Haidt's book. That's a big endorsement. And then gently presenting it as something that some parents would really appreciate to the principal or a teacher that you like, or the guidance counselor, the social worker, whoever's there, who you think might be interested in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when my son was just turning 15, I took him around the world for 2.5 months. We started out in Africa, we volunteered, we did a whole bunch of things, and then we flew all the way to Australia and then spent another month in New Zealand.
That
And
sounds so fun. I wish
when
you'd taken me.
we were wandering. We didn't have a fixed plan or anything. So I remember we wandered into this one little town and we ended up seeing a B&B sign on somebody's house. And they had a lower level and we ended up staying there in the downstairs of their house. We ended up having dinner with them and their daughter. And then they invited us to go to their daughter's school the next day. And it was a little village. It was a tiny little
Wow.
village where these folks lived in. And the kids were all playing like it was a village school. So they all played together, all the ages. And I did a little training for the teachers, just offered some support, and then
There you are, yeah.
was chatting with the principal on the playground, watching the kids play. And I spoke with the kids too. Do you like your school? Yeah, we love our school. And all the cross ages and the soccer, they were all playing soccer with the olders and the littles. And they said, these are the village kids. They have to get along. They're in each other's lives completely woven together. And it is so human to have that. And then you have them helping each other out and that level of generosity and care and that we're seeing the extreme absence of now. So
Mm.
coming back to this idea of anxiety, and I want to apologize to John Haidt because I mispronounced his name at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, he's tall.
Um,
And he's not filled with hate.
yeah, but the idea that he's talking about that you're feeding with it, this beautiful synergy that you've developed, where in when you're saturated with anxiety because you can't do anything for yourself or you've not been led to believe that you can, then what are you doing? You're looking at a screen.
Oh,
That
yeah.
you're mainlining this kind of numbing experience, and this association with digital stuff is there's such a direct relationship. Can you say a little bit more about that? Because I know screens are just huge on everybody.
Screens are a huge thing. It's really hard to deal with screens. I deal with them all the time. They are ubiquitous in our lives. But back in the day, parents could say, go outside. When they needed some free time, when they needed like a break. And now it's go online. And at Let Grow, we're making go outside back into normal. So if kids have experience at school playing face to face, if you've had them riding their bikes around or walking to the store or pet sitting or walking the dog, then they are reintegrated into the real world. So the alternative, I've read crazy articles about take away the phone and then make a really fun day at the local museum and call up and figure out your plans and what exhibits are you going to see and what essays are your child going to write when they're done. And that's good for 2 hours on Wednesday. You've got the rest of their childhood, right? So if you don't give them a way of having fun, meeting with their friends, being social, being alive, figuring out what they like to do, that is not online, the only place they can go is online. It's so obvious that the choice is virtual world or real world. We've been denying kids the real world for a long time lately. Like 10% of kids walk to school these days. And the American Academy of Pediatrics is saying, oh, nobody should be a pedestrian until age 10. It's like, we can't live in this fantasy of complete and utter danger anytime our kids walk outside and expect kids to find their way if there's no way to be found. So that's why the Let Grow experience is so great. It just makes everybody see, oh, my kid can go to the store. Oh, my kid can go to the neighbor. One lady wrote to us recently and said, I think her kid was, I can't remember, her kid was 8 or 10, boy. and I literally don't remember. Oh, she lives somewhere in California. And what she did is she created a friendship club. What's a friendship club? Just a name for, she found some other moms in the neighborhood who would be happy to have her kid or the other kids come over there and vice versa. And so now it's a friendship club. Her son can go knock on the door of these 3 or 4 other kids, and they can knock on his door, and nobody's going to go, did your mother say you could come here? Or my kid is very busy. If your kid is very busy, you say, I'm sorry, he's practicing piano. You can come back in an hour.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
they're not very busy, suddenly you have people in real life in each other's homes again. And the easiest thing in terms of phones, I think, in a home, we just did this recently at a holiday, is you have to put your phone in a basket or on the table as you walk in on the end table. And
Yeah.
so just make it a thing. It's not an argument, it's not a philosophical treatise. It's just, oh, phones go in the basket when you come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And there's Pop-Tarts in the cabinet.
Yeah. It's routine and ritual.
Mhm.
I go offline. I try to go offline Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, at least Saturday, Sunday.
Wow.
I don't do
Wow.
email. I might text with somebody, but I decided I was so overloaded that yesterday, Sunday,
Yeah.
I didn't even look at my phone the whole day.
Wow.
And I just watched my nervous system relax. I've been taking art classes, and two of my neighbors, sometimes we paint together.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't want to text. I didn't want to look at my phone. Who else might have come? So I actually was just going to go knock on her door. And I thought back, and the car wasn't there. But I thought back to my childhood. That's what we did. We didn't call like the neighbor down the
Right.
road,
The neighbors were neighbors. That was what neighbors
knocked
were
on their
for,
door, and you
right.
said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm going down to Sue's. If she's not there, I might be at Judy's." And
Yeah.
I just love what you're doing, and I encourage parents to get aligned with Let Grow and work with the parts inside that are struggling with this. I know, are you aware of The Self-Driven Child by Ned Johnson
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so we've done some classes together. I love and adore them, and they just came out with a workbook.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
they're in the same milieu.
Yeah. I've met with Ned. I had coffee with Ned. He's so
Oh,
nice.
you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great humans. And also trying to revive this feeling in kids because they, like me and all of us, are seeing the detrimental effect of depriving our children of these. So, what are a couple of things parents can do?
Oh,
Not
right
like,
now?
but
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, think back on the feeling of I did it myself. I just gave a talk, and an older man came up to me afterwards and he said that their grandkid says every time she does something, I did it myself. And he said, so that he and his wife started saying when they opened the wine or they made a casserole, I did it myself. And he said, what's interesting is that doing it jokingly made them keep wanting to do more things. So there's a real momentum to this feeling of competence and independence without, it's not like rejecting other people, but it's like, look what I could do. So first of all, try to get in touch with that. And then of course you can do any of these things on your own. And if you go to letgrow.org, we have an independence kit. We have a summer of independence thing that's about to come out with a list of all sorts of ideas for your kids, lemonade stand, skateboarding, whatever it is. But it's even better if you do it with somebody else. So that's why we recommend to see if your kid's teacher or school or church or library, if somebody else wants to take it on, to just social norms mean you need other people to be making it normal. So that's what we recommend. But even if you can't find anybody else, you can always do these things on your own. And then same with try to get your school to stay open for a Let Grow Play Club, which is the free play after school mixed ages. But if not, start one yourself. One of the things in the anxious generation is think about a free play Friday. Keep Friday free of organized activities. And it's the beginning of the weekend. And if your kids are playing together from 4 to 6, chances are they might want to play from 6 to 9. And then they might want to wake up the next morning and go outside and play some more. So just try to build independence and free play. Oh, and also Jennifer Wallace wrote a book about mattering. It's called Never Enough. And so try to think of ways that kids can feel like they matter to the family. I know we call them chores, and I was terrible at this, so I'm like the last person to talk about it. But I do believe that if the kids they help take the garbage out or they walk their little brother to kindergarten or whatever, it's a great feeling because you're part of a unit, right? And you're not just taking, you're giving, and that's a great feeling.
I'm a huge fan of that. And I like the idea of mattering. Yeah, chores I have very
Mhm.
mixed because there's a
Chore
lot,
sounds so yucky
yeah,
to me.
but just contributing, like being part of.
Contributing is exactly it. Yeah. There's a great book by a woman named, you probably know her, Micheline Duclef. She wrote a book called Hunt, Gather, Parent. I would recommend her for your podcast. And she had a kid who was like you could see the hand marks on Micheline's face because the kid had hit her so hard at age 3 or 4. And so then Micheline, who was an NPR reporter, went to all these indigenous communities in Alaska and Africa and South America and watched what the parents did there. And the idea is not just that oh, the ancient wisdom or whatever, or that indigenous is always smarter, but that the way that these people were raising their kids was probably had been refined over the millennia, as opposed to ours, which gets refined and newly changed every 6 months when somebody comes out with another book. The one thing that she learned that made the most sense to me is that kids desperately want to contribute. They want to be, not only do they want to be like older, and they want to be part of this family. And so as much as you can, let them help you, even when helping you at the beginning is not great because they spill or they screw things up. But you're a unit. Together, you're making this family work, and that's a great feeling. So if you can do that, which I couldn't, I recommend it.
That's great. Great. Thanks, Lenore. It covers so many different angles in this. This is the root of so many other things that I'm interested in, and I know matter so much to parents. So thanks for transforming what started out as this sort of benign
Weird.
thing that happened that really
Very
became
strange.
your offer to the world. So thank you. Anything final that you want to say? And certainly, where can people learn more?
First, I just want to say thank you for having me on this particular platform. And you can go to Let Grow, not Let It Grow, not Let's Go, not whatever, Let Them Grow, whatever. It's just Let Grow, Let grow.org. And all our materials are free.
Great. That's huge. Thank you.
Mhm.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. I loved our conversation. I love what Lenore's been doing for a long, long time now with free range kids and now with Let Grow, and lots of ideas for you to put into practice just to help your kids develop that all important sense of autonomy and inner confidence and agency and problem solving and all the good stuff. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a comment or a rating or a review. That really helps. And check out susanstiffelman.com for all kinds of classes, programs, and ways that we offer support to parents